My father's funeral, my stepmother's lawyer handed me an envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper, a restraining order banning me from my childhood home, and a letter informing me I'd been disinherited. My father was worth $180 million. I thought I'd inherit half. Instead, I got a legal document telling me I was no longer considered family. I'm Catherine Walsh. And this is the story of how my stepmother, a woman my father married just 18 months before he died, manipulated a dying man, rewrote his will, and stole my entire inheritance. Hit subscribe, because this story will show you that grief and greed can exist in the same room, and sometimes the people crying at funerals are the same ones who plan the heist. My mother died when I was 16. Cancer. It destroyed my father. Thomas Walsh was a real estate mogul who'd built an empire, but after Mom died, he became a shell of himself. For 8 years, I was all he had. We had dinner together every Sunday. I helped him run the family foundation. We were close. Or at least, I thought we were. In 2022, when I was 24 and Dad was 68, he met Vanessa at a charity gala. She was 34, beautiful, articulate, and charming. A wellness consultant, she said. She'd just moved to New York from California. Dad was smitten immediately. "Catherine, she reminds me so much of your mother," he said after their third date. "She has this light about her." I was happy for him. I really was. He'd been alone for so long. He deserved companionship. Vanessa was perfect. Too perfect. She laughed at all his jokes. She loved all his hobbies. She was interested in his business, his foundation, his dreams. She asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely fascinated by everything he said. 6 months later, they were engaged. "Cat, I know this is fast," Dad said. "But at my age, why wait? Life is short. Your mother would want me to be happy." I hugged him. "If she makes you happy, I'm happy for you." They married in an intimate ceremony in the Hamptons. Vanessa wore white. She cried during the vows. She seemed so in love. I was the maid of honor. 3 months after the wedding, Dad's health started declining. He'd always been healthy, played tennis, ate well, stayed active. But suddenly he was tired all the time. Dizzy. Forgetful. "Probably just stress from the wedding and getting older," Vanessa said, rubbing his shoulders. "You should rest more, darling." His doctors ran tests. Nothing conclusive. Just age-related decline, they said. But he got worse. Fast. Within 6 months of the wedding, Dad was barely recognizable. He'd lost weight. He slept most of the day. His memory was going. I tried to visit more often, but Vanessa was always there, managing everything. "Catherine, your father needs rest." The doctors said no stress. "I'm his daughter. Seeing me isn't stressful." "Of course not," she'd say with that smile. "But maybe shorter visits?" "He gets so exhausted." My Sunday dinners with Dad stopped. Vanessa said he was too tired. When I called, she'd answer his phone. "He's sleeping, honey. I'll tell him you called." But he never called back. I started getting concerned. I reached out to Dad's longtime lawyer, Frank Morrison, the man who'd handled all of Dad's legal affairs for 20 years. "Frank, I'm worried about Dad. He's not himself. Can you check on him?" "Actually, Catherine, your father recently changed legal representation. He's working with Vanessa's attorney now. A firm called Hastings and Black." My stomach dropped. Why would he change lawyers after 20 years? Vanessa felt he needed someone who specialized in estate planning for complex blended families. Your father agreed. When did this happen? About 2 months ago. 2 months ago. Right around when Dad started really declining. I tried to visit unannounced one afternoon. The housekeeper, Maria, who'd worked for our family for 15 years, answered the door. Her eyes were red. "Miss Catherine, I'm so sorry. Mrs. Walsh left instructions that you need to schedule visits in advance." "Maria, I don't need permission to see my own father." "I know, Mississippi. I'm sorry. But if I let you in, I'll lose my job." Mrs. Walsh was very clear. I was being blocked from my own father's house. The house I grew up in. That's when I knew something was very wrong. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Ms. Walsh? This is Dr. Sandra Chen from Manhattan General Hospital. Your father has been admitted. He's had a severe stroke." I rushed to the hospital. When I got to his room, Vanessa was there, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "Oh, Catherine," she said, hugging me. "It's so terrible. The doctors say he might not make it through the night." I pushed past her to Dad's bedside. He looked so small in that hospital bed. Tubes and wires everywhere. The beeping of machines. "Can you hear me?" I asked the doctor. "Possibly. Brain activity is minimal, but some patients can hear familiar voices." I held Dad's hand. "Dad, it's Kat. I'm here. I love you." His fingers twitched. Just slightly. But I felt it. Over the next 3 days, I barely left the hospital. Vanessa was there too, playing the devoted wife. She'd cry at appropriate moments. She'd thank nurses. She'd hold Dad's other hand. But I noticed something. Whenever doctors talked about treatment options, Vanessa asked about DNR orders. "Do not resuscitate. Shouldn't we try everything?" I asked. "Catherine, your father made his wishes clear. He wouldn't want to be kept alive by machines. We need to respect his dignity. He's only 69. People recover from strokes. He's suffered enough," she said firmly. "We need to let him go peacefully." On the 4th day, a nurse pulled me aside. "Miss Walsh, I shouldn't tell you this, but your father's wife has been asking about time-of-death procedures. About death certificates. About how quickly the body can be released. It's unusual. Most families aren't thinking about logistics while their loved one is still alive." My blood ran cold. That afternoon, Dad died. Vanessa sobbed dramatically. She called the funeral home before calling any of Dad's friends or colleagues. And she denied my request for an autopsy. "Catherine, why would you want to put him through that? He's at peace now. Let him rest." The funeral was huge. Dad was well known in New York real estate circles. Hundreds of people came. Vanessa played the grieving widow perfectly, designer black dress, tasteful jewelry, tears at exactly the right moments. I gave a eulogy. I talked about my father, the man who raised me, who taught me everything. I looked at Vanessa when I mentioned the people who truly knew and loved him. She smiled at me sadly, as if we were united in grief. The day after the funeral, her lawyer showed up at my apartment. "Ms. Walsh, I'm Robert Hastings from Hastings and Black. I represent Mrs. Vanessa Walsh. I'm here to deliver this." He handed me a thick envelope. Inside was a restraining order and a letter. The restraining order stated I was banned from the family home and any property owned by my father's estate. The letter informed me that my father had changed his will 4 months before his death. Vanessa inherited everything: the $180 million estate, the properties, the foundation, the business holdings. I was left nothing. Specifically nothing. The will explicitly stated I was intentionally excluded. This is impossible. My father would never. "Mrs. Walsh has also filed a cease and desist order preventing you from making any claims against the estate or publicly disputing the will. If you violate this order, you'll be subject to legal action. Get out of my apartment." I immediately hired a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, Diane Reeves, one of the best estate litigation attorneys in New York. After reviewing the documents, Diane looked at me seriously. "Catherine, this will was changed 4 times in the last 6 months. Each time, you got less. Each time, Vanessa got more. The final version, signed 2 weeks before your father's death, leaves you nothing. He wasn't in his right mind. He had a stroke. The will was signed before the stroke. But here's what's interesting. I pulled his medical records. Your father was on a cocktail of medications that can cause confusion, memory loss, and cognitive impairment. Some combinations can even mimic dementia. Are you saying Vanessa drugged him? I'm saying someone gave him medications that aren't standard for his conditions. And that same someone stood to inherit $180 million if he died. That's enough for a legal challenge. We filed a lawsuit contesting the will, undue influence, lack of capacity, fraud. And that's when things got ugly. Vanessa fought back hard. She had unlimited resources, my father's resources, to pay for the best lawyers money could buy. They painted me as a bitter, greedy daughter who couldn't accept her father's choices. They leaked stories to the press, heiress wars with stepmother over fortune. They produced witnesses who said I had a troubled relationship with my father. I didn't recognize half these people. They brought in a psychiatrist who testified that my father was completely competent when he signed the will. This psychiatrist had met with Dad exactly once, 2 days before he signed the final version. For 30 minutes. Meanwhile, my legal team found damaging evidence. Vanessa had been married 3 times before. Each husband was wealthy. Each died within 2 years of marriage. Each left her everything. The wellness consulting business she claimed to run didn't exist. No business license, no clients, no tax returns. Her real name wasn't Vanessa Romano. It was Vanessa Rodriguez. She'd changed it 6 years ago. She'd been investigated, but not charged, for elder fraud in California before moving to New York. But the smoking gun was the medication. Maria, our former housekeeper, agreed to testify. She broke down on the stand. Mrs. Vanessa, she would crush pills into Mr. Walsh's food. She told me they were vitamins. But I found the bottles. They were prescription medications. Different doctors, different pharmacies. I didn't know what to do. I was scared. The toxicology report from Dad's hospital admission showed dangerous levels of sedatives and anti-anxiety medication in his system. Levels that would cause severe cognitive impairment. Your Honor, Diane argued, Thomas Walsh was systematically drugged by his wife to make him compliant while she isolated him from his daughter and manipulated him into changing his will. This is textbook elder abuse. Vanessa's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, Mr. Walsh was under the care of multiple physicians. If there were medication issues, his doctors would have noticed. Mrs. Walsh was a devoted wife caring for an ailing husband. The trial lasted 8 months. The judge ruled in my favor. Partially. He found evidence of undue influence and questionable medication practices. He invalidated the final will, the one that left me nothing. But he upheld the will from 6 months earlier. The one that left Vanessa 70% of the estate and me 30%. $54 million. Instead of $90 million. Vanessa got $126 million for 18 months of marriage to my father. The court acknowledges serious concerns about Mrs. Walsh's behavior, the judge said. However, there is insufficient evidence to prove she directly administered medications without Mr. Walsh's knowledge. The court finds a middle ground that reflects both Mrs. Walsh's legal rights as a spouse and Ms. Walsh's rights as a biological heir. I should have been happy. I'd won. Partially. But I wasn't happy. Because Vanessa had still gotten away with it. After the verdict, I hired a private investigator to track her. Turns out, she was already engaged to an 82-year-old oil tycoon in Texas. Engaged. 6 months after my father died. She'd moved on to her next target. I contacted the FBI with all the evidence we'd gathered. They opened an investigation. But these things move slowly. And Vanessa is careful. As for me, I took my $54 million, about $35 million after legal fees and taxes, and started a foundation dedicated to protecting elderly people from predatory caregivers and romantic partners. I also successfully lobbied for a new law in New York requiring psychological evaluations for anyone changing their will within 6 months of a new marriage if the changes disinherit previous beneficiaries. It's called Thomas's Law, named after my father. I'm Catherine Walsh. My stepmother drugged my father, isolated him from me, stole most of my inheritance, and is probably doing it to someone else right now. Here's what I learned. Predators don't look like predators. They look like attractive, charming people who seem too good to be true. Because they are. If someone in your family, especially an elderly parent, suddenly gets remarried and starts changing legal documents, pay attention. Visit often. Ask questions. Talk to their lawyers, their doctors, their friends. And if you're ever frozen out or told you're causing stress or need to respect boundaries, that's not a boundary. That's isolation. And isolation is the first step in manipulation. Protect the people you love. Even if it makes you seem paranoid. Even if it causes conflict. Because I'd rather be called paranoid than stand at another funeral knowing I could have done something. If this story resonated with you, subscribe and share it. You might save someone's parent, grandparent, or loved one. I'm Catherine Walsh. Thank you for listening.